Hi, this is Dan Heisman, and this is the Improve Your Chess series for ICC members. In today's video, we're going to look at another amateur game. Today's game was played at a 45-5 time rate. Let's get to the board. All right, White played c4, English opening. Could transpose into a queen's pawn opening. Black has a lot of possible replies. Black decides to play what we could call reverse Sicilian with e5. A lot of times in these kind of openings, White fianchettos and goes for more control of these white squares here. That c4 move starts his white square strategy. White plays knight c3. Knight c3 is the most common move, again going for that white square strategy in the center. The second most common move on the second move would be g3. Black plays knight c6. Black also commonly plays knight f6 there. If he plays knight f6, maybe he'd be going for d5 and a reverse open Sicilian. With knight c6, he could play like a reverse Grand Prix attack or many other possibilities. White plays knight f3. That and g3 are the two most common moves there. Usually when White plays knight f3, the next move will be something like d4 to attack the center. Could also still play g3. Black plays f5. And that's a pretty common move in this position. And now the main move for White is to make Black commit in the center with d4. And sometimes Black will play e4. For instance, rather than looking at the book position, let's let the computer look at this for a second. It's interesting. Here the computer is actually suggesting knight e5, which is a move that I don't see that much here. All right, so let's get back. In the game, White plays the very passive d3. This is probably the first sign that White's not a grandmaster. There are lots of lines like the Botvinnik variation where White plays d3. And in fact, here, White could look to play e4, but now he can't play a Botvinnik because in a Botvinnik, his knight would be developed to e2. So I see a lot of amateurs in Englishes play d3 in positions where they could play d4 or a later d4. And it's not very aggressive. It's not a really good way to try to get the initiative or get an advantage with White. So whenever I see White playing d3 in positions where he's probably not supposed to, that's not a good sign. Black plays knight f6, the most principled and common move there. And now White plays g3. All right, Black plays bishop to c5. And White, of course, could just play bishop g2 and castle here. He does play bishop g2. Black castles, White castles. Black plays d6. All right, if White had his pawn on d2 now, you would expect White to play like a3 and e3 and threaten to play d4 and b4. He can still do that, but he's going to be an entire tempo down the main lines here. That doesn't mean it's a disaster, but it does mean that White has less chance to get a good position. So White does play e3. And now d4 will be relatively unstoppable, but doesn't have the pressure that would have if White was up a tempo here. Black plays queen e8. I guess he's going for that typical kind of Grand Prix attack with queen h5 and knight g4 or actually probably f4 first, followed by bishop h3 and knight g4 with a possible mating attack. You see this a lot in some openings. Shouldn't work, of course, if White plays it right, but it doesn't always do that. White plays d4 to hit the bishop. Now Black is an interesting choice. His e-pawn is perfectly safe, so he doesn't have to trade before he moves the bishop. So the question is, should he trade or not? And here, Black makes the absolute right choice. He plays bishop to b6 without trading. Let's look and see what would happen if he had traded first. Pawn takes,